So another episode of Muha has way more to say about this than I ever will. We
Well,
have Dune.
Dune's pretty good, and I'm doing pretty good.
It was a good attempt to recycle. He tried that joke off camera.
Once you waste the initial reaction, it's just not the same. So
How many times do you watch this now?
last night was the sixth.
Okay, I wasn't sure if there was another one between like then and this after.
No, I don't want to force it. As it stands, I've already I have 3 more viewings lined up.
Jesus Christ.
So with that in mind, this is almost already beaten the number of times I saw Cats in theaters. And it's much more worthy of that title. So I want to get it up there.
I feel like at this point you're just doing it just to beat your Cats record.
No, not really. Initially, it was to see it in every kind of theater I could. And then I saw it with my dad. And then last night I woke up at like 9 p.m. and it was just like, oh, what can I do with my evening? I don't feel like doing anything here. Are there any movies I could see? Not really in the mood for last night at Soho. Oh, hey, a Dune showing. Like in IMAX at the Metro at the Mercado. And,
for a second I thought you said you drove all the way to the Metreon.
Dude, there are no fucking seats at the Metreon showings.
Damn.
They sell out like that. It's fucking crazy. Or at least
I'm glad it's doing well.
Stuck within the first 5 rows of the 70-foot tall screen, or on the very sides. Like they sell out so fast. And it's gonna get bumped out by Eternals next week.
Oh yeah.
Like it's only going to be in the big IMAX for 2 weeks, and all of those showings have sold out really fucking fast. But I got a decent seat for one of them on Monday, so I'm going to make that my last big, because that's one movie that's worth seeing on the big IMAX. Because it's kind of crazy too, because I have to wonder, especially after seeing Zack Snyder's Justice League, it's gotten me thinking about how things that are filmed in full-blown IMAX ratio, what happens to that footage after theaters show it? Like, is that just gone?
That's a good question.
I don't know. I don't think it's distributed on anything. Like all of the new big high-def TVs are 16:9. There's nothing in a giant 4:3 ratio for people to watch proper 4K IMAX in. So what happens there? And it kills me because there's some IMAX shots in that movie that are just fucking mind-blowing. That one shot, especially the biggest one for me, was the very near the end of the movie where they face up against the worm.
Yeah, I know what you're talking
shot
about.
You see in the trailers all over the place. But that shot in the normal theater view, like when the worm is rising up, you just see him at the bottom of the screen, kind of cut off. It's from here up, and the rest of the screen is just filled with worm.
Yeah.
In the IMAX showing, you see his whole body, and it's just the whole thing. It's just a different sense of scale. It's not cut off at all.
Yeah.
And then the shot where it shows the whole worm, in widescreen, it's like him standing there, and the worm's kind of cut off at this much of the circle. In IMAX, you see the whole fucking thing. It's such an amazing impact of a visual, and it makes me sad to think that I won't be able to see that at home ever again.
Yeah.
So yeah, seeing it in big IMAX first kind of fucked up the rest of my showings on a certain level. But it also allowed me to compare different kinds. I tried D-Box for the first time. I can verify D-Box sucks.
Yeah, I know you're telling me about that off camera. Really, yeah. It never looks comfortable to me ever, and it's like, why would I can stand it for a 5 to 10 novelty ride at a theme park, but for 2 hours of my life,
yeah,
no thank you.
So maybe with certain Marvel movies or whatever, but it was really funny to be in, because Dune has a bunch of quiet sequences, very quiet dialogue-based meditative sequences, and so you'll be sitting there just enjoying this quiet character moment, and then it'll cut to a ship taking off or something, and you'll just go from sitting there to and you're like, oh God, I
woke up.
Damn it. So that was always funny. I always cracked myself up at my own discomfort. So that was cool, but
So
yeah, in terms of the movie itself,
yeah, I was gonna say we should probably talk about actual top of the movie.
yeah.
So
So
let's.
Denis Villeneuve.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're both a fan of his work. We've
Um,
both seen all of his work.
Me, I don't think it's unfair to say me a little more so than you.
Absolutely.
Like
Like
you
not an
love his
argument here.
stuff, but I'm kind of obsessed. Um,
You no.
I've been obsessed.
Never would have gotten that impression when the text message I got right after your first screen was, dude, I want to sit down and watch all his movies right now.
It's a vibe, dude. It's a vibe. Denis Villeneuve has consistently delivered with every single movie an interesting, deep character experience. And I've been a big fan of his ever since I just happened to, on a whim, go to a showing at an indie movie theater of Encendies. And it just blew me away because I wasn't used to Western directors making movies like that, not just in style, but like about that kind of topic.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was really excited when he started making more well-known stuff. Sicario, you remember, it was the movie of the year for me when we back
Prisoners,
in 2013, 2012, 2015, something.
however long ago it was. It was a long
I don't know. It was a while ago, but when Sicario came out, it was my movie of the year. And Prisoners is fantastic.
Yep.
Seen that multiple times.
Blade Runner.
I just saw Arrival recently, which was great.
Arrival is I found Arrival to be a fascinating film.
Yeah. And of course, Blade Runner 2049, which
we both agree is a masterpiece.
Until the rage of Star Wars was our longest review for a long time.
Both was mostly you, I feel like, whenever it goes over an hour.
Sure. But at the same time, the only reason Blade Runner 2049 was the length that it was and not longer was because you ran out of battery.
I can't believe we're still holding a grudge against that this many years later.
It was an important experience, Michael. You need to capture the moment. But yeah, so this movie it's important to me in multiple ways, aside from being, watching a foreign director who makes movies in the particular classical way that I really like, which is some people would call them slow, but I feel like as I watch them multiple times, I feel less that they're slow and more that they take their time focusing on important character moments. Like if you connect with these characters on a certain level, if you connect with the content of the film, it lets you just live in that universe for a while and really experience what's happening. And there are no wasted scenes in any of his movies. Like every scene is important and relevant to what's going on. So I know that that's not everybody's speed, but it's very much the kind of stuff that I wish there was more of in movies. And it's something I really appreciate. And watching him go from being like some unknown foreign director to slowly getting bigger names in his movies, to getting more recognition, to being given fucking Blade Runner. I remember being fucking hyped for Blade Runner when I heard that he was going to direct it. Yeah. And everyone was skeptical and some people didn't like it because it wasn't like the original. I like it miles better than the original. I think it does everything the original tried to do, but way better.
I think both you and I were in agreement about that when we saw it.
And so when I heard he was going to get Dune, I've never been a particularly huge fan of Dune. The original movie just looked kind of weird to me. And the book was just, long, high sci-fi, which doesn't mean it's bad. It's just something I didn't really have the attention span for.
Yeah.
But I always liked the things that I heard about from it, like the quotes that they had philosophically and stuff. So, and I know that it's a very rich universe to build a movie out of, right? And that's why it was so difficult for them to adapt it. So when he got a hold of this project, I was fucking excited because I knew that we would see someone who would focus on the things about the universe that I found interesting instead of just being focused on like, look at cool, weird sci-fi things. I really like the there's an element of high sci-fi that really appeals to me where it's kind of digging into the philosophical ideas of what we are once we start exploring the cosmos and what we are in the grander scope of things, and just much more epic sweeping perspective of humanity and its place in the universe and life in in the face of something that huge. So I love how Hans Zimmer basically turned down Tenet to do the soundtrack for this. And Christopher Nolan was like, hey, I want you to do the soundtrack. And he was like, can't, I got Dune. And Christopher Nolan was like, I get it. Very cool. Congratulations. I'll go get someone else. It's the first time since they started working together that Nolan has not had a movie scored by Zimmer. And he was just like, yep, get it. We're cool. That's how big of a deal Dune is. And then they spent the couple of years making it, and then COVID happened.
Yeah.
And then they had to push it out and delay it. And then Warner Brothers started doing its thing where it was doing the simultaneous releases on HBO and theaters, when they at least started doing the theater thing. But they were just going to release things straight to HBO. And Villeneuve was so pissed off, along with Nolan, that they were like, don't you fucking dare. You're basically going to make it so that we have this ridiculously low number on our fucking resumes, and you're going to use that against us when it comes to funding our next projects. And especially with Dune, since they didn't have the second one greenlit yet, Villeneuve was like, you're just going to waste this on streaming and then tell me I'm not going to get money for the second iteration. Like, you're going to just leave this half done. And so he went and publicly spoke up against the studio executives and the people that, he works for, so that he could make sure this doesn't fucking die before he's done with it. And he pushed for that publicly, and he got it pushed out. And not only did he actually get what he wanted, but now that it's finally out,
it's doing pretty well.
Broken records.
Yeah.
And it's not like all-time highest selling movie, but it is the most successful film release since the beginning of COVID. As of this week, they released it last month in Europe, right? So as of the end of this past opening weekend in the US, it has grossed $220 million worldwide.
Damn.
In box office. And that's just insane in these times. And so on Tuesday, Timothée Chalamet announced on his Twitter that they got greenlit for part 2.
Yeah, that's right.
And for the first few days of watching it, there's still this uncertainty as to whether you're going to ever see the rest of this. So there was kind of this bittersweet, kind of anxious feeling at the end where you're like, oh, this is so good. I hope they get the second one. And then they got it. And ever since then, it's been like, fuck yeah. There is this feeling of gratification and holy fuck, they fucking did it kind of victory to it. And it's a little different from, the Snyder Cut story, but I feel like weirdly it's in a similar vein of studios really wanting to fuck over the artist and do things their way, and the artist taking a public stand and risking everything just to get it done his way. And he managed to get it out. And I mean, there's no comparison between how well they've done, because the Snyder Cut didn't even make it to theaters. But it's really great to see an artist once again getting his way in the face of what the execs were trying to do, and it paying off.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I just, there's a lot around the feelings about this movie.
That's fair.
That aren't even the movie itself. It's just the story of it. So yeah, I got a lot of feelings about this. So aside from all that, it helps that it's a fucking great movie.
I think it's good. Kind of going back to what you were saying before, though, this is something I grappled with, because I was watching it and I'm like, I don't see anything technically wrong here. All the shots are gorgeous. The saturation's a bit grayer for my taste, but it still looks great.
Yeah.
The performances are like pretty outstanding for the most part, but I wasn't connecting with it.
Well, that's the thing about high sci-fi.
And it's not the writing's fault, because I was looking at it, it's like, is it like
it's good writing?
Yeah, like, it's not the writing's fault. It's not the directing. It's not anything else. And then I realized what it boiled down to. Fucking Paul. I did not like Paul as a character. I could not stand him.
He's a kid. He's isolated. He doesn't know what he's doing.
It's not the writing's fault.
Yeah.
It's the performance. I did not like this
performance. Was great.
I did not like this performance.
I thought it was perfect for the role.
I thought everyone had more charisma than he did. And there are a few scenes where he's allowed to have more range where he's good, but for the most part, he's doing just that stone face dramatic acting. We just
Ryan Gosling.
Ryan Gosling had more subtlety and intimacy in his performance.
Yes, because he's practiced it more.
Yeah,
he's developed it since Drive.
Agreed. Absolutely agree.
Yeah, I feel like that kind of falls in the same category as the problem that a lot of people had with Drive, where they don't know if he's acting or not.
Honestly, that was my issue with Drive too.
No, that's the thing. But I'm okay with that. I see him as a kid who just hasn't figured himself out for the most part and doesn't know what to do. And he's basically been told how to act for the most part.
As like, he can still do that and make it more engaging, but I just kept thinking it's like how literally when anyone else except him was on screen, I was more interested in what was happening because it felt like everyone had more charisma and had more emotion going on. But then you cut back to long scenes with him, and I felt nothing except the will to get him off the screen. And to me, that's kind of I know you don't feel that way, and that's fine. Yeah.
But again, I feel like another thing about that worked is the fact that they're essentially royalty, right? They're taught to act a certain way. He doesn't have any friends. The only friends he really has are like Duncan Idaho and that one general. Like he doesn't really know a lot of people. His life consists of training and everything. He's really lonely and everything. So I feel like I hope we see more personality as he
I hope so too.
Accepted into the second half. Like I think that was an intentional choice. So I was okay with it.
If it was, I couldn't tell, but then again, you have seen it more than me.
There's actually a lot of subtlety to the role.
I'm sure there is. I just did not feel or have any interest in it when I was watching it, which is kind of a problem. For me specifically, let me be clear. I recognize that this is not a popular opinion.
Not to mention that Villeneuve doesn't, he wouldn't do it that way. He wouldn't let him do it that way if that wasn't what he wanted.
Sure. I just don't think it's an interesting choice.
And it is closer to what the book was.
Sure, but considering how much they cut out from the book, it's like you could have easily tweaked some things there. Because a lot of the book is like I haven't read the book. It's like read like changes from the book to the source, like movie, that kind of thing. Because like the book is much more like trippy dream sequences and shit, and like they cut all of that out and said like, oh, let's talk about your dreams you had last night. So clearly you can fuck around with the source material and still be fine.
I appreciated that they decided to take it out of the fantastical and kind of focus more on the personal characters.
Oh, and I'm agreeing that's the right choice. My point is like if you can do that, I don't really see as being beholden to the source material that much, where you can't add at least a little charisma towards it. And again, this is a personal preference. It's not a fault of the films. Like I said, it's not the writing. The character is well written. And it's not the what?
Sorry, I got a text. Apparently, Chris also got a PS5 today.
Oh shit!
Happened to. I guess it's PS5 day for people.
For context, for those watching, I managed to get a PS5 today after trying for a few weeks. Mostly out of pure luck. Good. Our very own Chris apparently got lucky too.
Yeah. But
like, it's not the story's fault. It's not the writing's fault. It's not all these things. He's the main POV character, and I just was not invested in him as a character.
I think I'm used to stories where you have essentially an isolated prince learning to grow into himself.
It's more like I felt the same way I did when I watched.
I get it. I'm just saying we're moving past that because there's way more to talk about the movie than how much you didn't like the main character.
But that's kind of a big problem though, because like when you don't like who you're actually supposed to be rooting for, and then it drags the rest of the film down.
I mean, not emotionally engaging with someone isn't the same thing as not rooting for them.
Like I said, if I'm not emotionally engaged with the character, I don't really have a reason to care about what they do or say.
I wasn't really in his POV though. When I watch the movie, it's not a matter of being in his perspective. It's a matter of watching all of these different elements combine around these characters.
Okay, fine. POV is the wrong choice of words, but
yeah, but it's pushing them along towards, the prophecy or whatever their destiny is. And what I really liked about it was how many different elements of this world are built so easily. It's really good at world building without pushing it too hard. It just, all these things kind of exist in this universe.
It is a fully realized
how
world.
they get established and get fleshed out.
Yeah.
And I really fucking loved Rebecca Ferguson's performance as his mother.
Yeah, no, she was really good.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And the way that they use visuals in this movie, the way that they convey how his visions are coming to him and how he's confused by them, and the idea of potential futures versus the future that actually happens. Honestly, the thing about the movie that kind of took me the most out of it was Zendaya.
Yeah, she just seemed like, hey, Zendaya's still here. It's like she'll be important eventually.
She's smiling dreamily through the sand at the camera. And that's what she does most of the time. And at the
I know, every time
when she actually speaks, I don't really get I feel like she's pretending to have more weight as a character than she actually has.
Yeah,
she still comes across as kind of a kid to me.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it always kind of weird
those moments, but I appreciated her trying.
It is kind of funny how some of the flash forwards, like the visions sequence in these movies, almost kind of feel like a pitch for the second part.
Oh yeah,
wouldn't you like to see this maybe happen in the next part? Well, fucking watch the movie so we can greenlight it. And thank God this sequel got greenlight, because if we went through all of that, only to go yeah, that's it, you can go home now. That would be that would piss I'm not even as loving the movies you are, and I'm that would have pissed me the fuck off.
You can see why Villeneuve was so insistent.
Yeah, no, I get it. I 100% get it.
Don't fuck this up for me, Warner Brothers.
And despite the fact I'm not as in love with movies a lot of people are, I'm still glad it got greenlit. I'm still glad that it's going to tell the full story it wants to tell.
I'm also just a big fan of high sci-fi. I'm a fan of stuff that gets really deep and philosophical and meditative about the cosmic mysteries of life and shit without getting too super trippy about it.
That's what I loved about Arrival.
There's this thing about this movie. Also, there's something probably a little more personal about it for me, because this movie is a direct metaphor.
Oh, they don't hide it at all.
No, they don't hide it. It was there in the original book.
Yeah, I kind of assumed that. Yeah,
and the whole idea, you got to understand, Mahdi, that is the name for the chosen one that's going to come save them.
Yeah,
that is literally an element in Islam.
Yeah,
the Mahdi, that name, that word, is their name for the person who is going to come and save them all. That is a direct concept from Islam.
Sure.
This movie is about woke jihad.
Yeah, totally.
100% this movie is about the fucking evil West coming to their land, plundering it for its resources, committing genocide, and how, the Sand People are actually very noble and in touch with their spiritual side. And it's a good thing if they actually, rebel and take down the invaders and murder them and seize the means of production. It's very much anti-Western, anti-capitalist.
Oh, for sure,
propaganda.
And I am game for all of that. Let me be clear.
Siding with the Afghani Mujahideen. It's not subtle about that.
No,
the attire they wear is basically what Afghanis wear. It's not subtle.
Not even a little bit.
And I kind of fucking love that.
Compared to his previous work, this one does if you haven't caught up the bull metaphor means, you will by the fifth time you show the bull head.
Wait, what does the bull metaphor mean?
Oscar Isaac facing off against the bull of American imperialism and yada yada yada.
Now the
and he died doing it just like his granddaddy.
There you go. Spoiler alert. But the way that this is built And disclaimer, I'm not supporting, like the bad guys, just so you know. But do some reading into your history. There's plenty of situations where America's the bad guys and the West is the bad guys. Read about the origins of BP and what they did in Iran. Like there's as an Iranian, I appreciate that in Western narrative. But also one of the things I appreciate about it is the fact that a lot of the elements of like mysticism in the movie, mystic philosophy and stuff, that is shit that is built into like my soul. Like that is my kind of fucking spiritualism. There's one line and they say in the movie, which is the mystery of life is not a problem to be solved, but a reality to be experienced. And God, I fucking loved that. When he said that, I was like, oh, yes, more of this. This is what I want out of sci-fi. Give me this shit. And that really cuts to the core of it. Like if that's the kind of thing that you connect with, if you're interested in that kind of stuff in your movies, especially your sci-fi and fantasy stuff, like this is up your alley. This is your jam.
Yeah.
But yeah, never mind the fact that from a technical perspective, it is flawless. Also, you can tell that this is Hans Zimmer's dream project because he does not go for any subtlety throughout the movie. His score is in your face, sweeping, epic, loud, aggressive, like really fucking great stuff. I loved it. Had a great time.
I'm sorry. Can we take a quick break for just 1 second here?
Do you need to poop?
Not quite. Just gotta do.
Mike was gonna go poop, guys. It's poop.
All right. Sorry about that.
Action. All right.
So where were we talking about the Hans Zimmer soundtrack?
Yeah, Hans Zimmer goes hard in the paint for this one. Just all kinds of like beautiful woodwinds, Middle Eastern sounding stuff, choirs doing some great chanting work for the theme of the sisters, and just completely surprised fucking bagpipes.
Oh yeah.
Some intense fucking bagpipes. When that theme hit, I was like, oh, some good stuff. But yeah, I guess the main thing about the movie at this point for me is it is less, it's very weird because I feel like it's very interesting comparing the three sci-fi movies that Denis Villeneuve has done. Because you have Arrival, which is weirdly small in scope.
Yeah.
It has worldwide implications throughout its plot, and it's got like international political intrigue going on. But for the most part, it feels very much almost like a bottle episode. It takes place almost entirely around these couple of characters, namely the main character, in a small environment, basically going back and forth between this little base and this room. And then you have Blade Runner 2049, which is much more sweeping in scope, has a much bigger world and bigger implications, but at the same time feels like a very personal story that is centered around this one guy. And then you have this, which is even bigger in scope, and weirdly doesn't have as much variety, but feels like it has more depth in terms of its world than Blade Runner.
Yeah.
But at the same time, deals with a lot more characters and feels a lot less personal than Blade Runner did. And it's like, I think personally, I felt like I emotionally connected much more with the character and story of Blade Runner.
Yeah.
But in terms of a universe and a world and essentially watching what's essentially a mythological tale take place before you, like the origin of a chosen one kind of deal, it becomes something that I don't feel a part of, but I do feel immersed in more, if that makes sense. The world feels more immersive and real, but the characters feel less relatable, partially because they are, they're highborn, they have magical powers, they are trained to not be like most people. This kid and his mother are very much apart from everybody. They don't really have other relationships, especially the mother. It's very interesting to differentiate those. And while personally I feel like I connected emotionally more with Blade Runner, I find this easier to watch, I think, partially because I connect less with the character. It's less of an emotional experience and more just like a really rich thing that I'm enjoying and experiencing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I've been thinking about it a lot.
I can see that. I think it really depends on just what your preferences are. For me, I personally prefer more character connection. I get more out of that Blade Runner as I opposed to do with this.
Yeah.
Less disconnect means I'm less interested. So like the more detached I feel from these characters, the less interested I'm going to be in whatever else is going on, which I think is kind of my main issue with the movie. And that's not a fault of the movie itself. That's down to personal preference.
No, that's why I find it interesting, because on a certain level, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Honestly, like I think we can both agree that Blade Runner had a much more human story at the center of it.
Yeah.
While this has a much more mystical,
it's definitely grandiose and scope and scale.
Yeah, and I don't know. There's a reason I've seen this 6 times in theaters, and I plan on seeing it 3 more times. It's not getting old for me. It's something that grows more comfortable with each experience. I think the thing like last night with the 6th showing was, it wasn't like, the decision to see it was much more casual than the other times. It wasn't like, oh man, I got to see Dune. It was more like, oh, what am I going to do? I could see Dune again. Let's go see Dune. And then when I sat, and I was just kind of like very comfortable. It was very soothing to be watching something this good and this well crafted, and just watching the subtle touches of everything throughout the movie and enjoying, as you watch it more, you start to catch certain things and how they relate to each other throughout the movie. And like there are things where characters, on the second or third rewatch, you kind of realize that, holy shit, this character knew what was going to happen. And they are specifically letting it happen and just playing their part because they believe in the prophecy. They understand the purpose of not interfering with these things, because even though they're terrible things, they need to happen for the rest of the prophecy to come true. And that's more important than any of it. And I just found that really compelling. The idea of all these different moving parts and all of these different people that, are part of this mystical, prophetic narrative that are just playing their part and sacrificing themselves along the way to make sure that what needs to happen does happen.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you're necessarily wrong in anything you're saying. I think it, again, just boils down to how much you connect with this world and the story and these characters. I think it's going to really make or break the film for you. Because from my end of things, like I watched it once and I'm kind of like, I don't need to see that again. Like, there's not a whole lot there. To me, it's like, I don't really see what I would gain from a second viewing, because I just did not like. To me, I feel like I would just be bored for a lot of it.
I was enraptured the whole fucking time.
That's fine.
Every time I've gone to see it, I've been just spellbound.
And absolutely nothing wrong with that. Like I feel like the biggest difference here is just personal taste.
Yeah. And you're gonna, that's the thing. It's one of those movies, but you're at least glad you saw it the one time.
Yeah.
Right?
And I'm glad it's getting part 2. I'm glad it's going to finish the story. It's more like, that was interesting. It was cool to look at. I don't need to see it twice. That just again,
or you're like me, where you're like, I need to see it as many times as possible on the big screen.
Yeah, I was like, I don't need to make an hour commute to go watch this in a bigger screen. I don't.
Like, seriously, I used my 3 fucking passes for the week for AMC's A-list subs pass that I have. I used my 3 passes a while ago. I have paid additional money to see these additional times, including paying to take my dad with me once. Like, I have used all 3 of my passes. I drove to fucking San Francisco to see it and paid $35 in parking.
Jesus.
And because that's San Francisco, baby. Yep. But like, and I've spent like $80 on tickets other than that.
Jesus.
Just outside of the free passes that I already have. And I've already scheduled the rest of the passes that I have for this following week.
I think you're like at least a percentage on the chart for how they got greenlit for the sequel.
I am only paying my dues to one of the great artists of our time.
Here's all the charts where our biggest sales coming from, and this 0.5%, that's this one dude.
But it is this thing where, like, you know, I mean, it's not just like the Dune thing. I'm also going to go see, like, this week I'm trying to go see The French Dispatch and Antlers and Last Night in Soho. You know, like, there are other movies that I'm trying to see, but I'm not letting those get in the way of me seeing Dune in theaters as many fucking times as I can. So that's just it. That's the whole thing right there.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it really is a sci-fi world that I can feel fully immersed in and enveloped by. And I can just, even if I'm not watching what the characters are doing in a particular scene, I can enjoy what every scene just imparts about the world itself, and exactly how everything works. And like, I don't know, I it's my jam. So this is I really, really, really am happy that Villeneuve got the chance to see and to make the movie that he wanted to make. And I'm really excited to see what he does now that he has been like, haha, see, told you, fuck you. I'm going to make my movie now. Give me my money. Like, give me my next 150 million. I'm going to do what I want, bitches. Like, fuck you, Warner. This is my house.
Yeah, I don't know how much to add to that. I feel like I also need to paraphrase. I also got some bad news like 10 minutes ago, so the moon's kind of knocked down my sales a little bit. But yeah, I don't think you're wrong in anything you've said. I think there is definitely the artistic value in it. It will just vary by degrees, I think. For me, if I was going to watch one of his films, I'd go back to Blade Runner if I had to pick one. I feel like.
Yeah, I personally, I like Blade Runner better, but I think I would rather rewatch this, if that makes sense. I don't know if I can make that make sense, but right now it just feels, I don't know. I think Blade Runner would make me feel too much. There are lots of emotions that happen during Blade Runner.
Yeah, I find more comfort in that than I do this thing. In a weird way.
Sometimes I find it comfortable to not feel things. Sometimes.
Fair. Totally fair. Yeah.
As someone who is a great subscriber to the idea of a movie that makes you feel things is a great movie. And very much is into movies that make them cry. Cause like, God, I saw Titane a second time. Basically from the point where he picks her up from the police station, I was crying. Like for most of the movie.
I can see why.
It's a lot different the second time.
I can imagine. Yeah.
When you know what to expect, because a lot of the tension the first time around comes from you not knowing what's going to happen or whether, you know, she's going to kill again or something like that.
Yeah.
So watching it the second time and knowing what to expect and being able to relax and just watch that relationship happen, dude, I was a mess. Like I was just at varying degrees of tears throughout almost the whole movie. But like, yeah, I'm absolutely for that. But sometimes, you know, I just want to watch a really, really fucking good movie that doesn't make me cry for half of it.
For sure. Yeah.
You know, it's a thing. So,
all right. Well,
so yeah.
I don't think I have much to say beyond that. Was there anything else you wanted to add on there?
Or? Like and subscribe, I guess. I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, definitely good. Definitely worth seeing at least once, and you'll know whether or not at the end of it you're more like me or more like Michael when it comes to this movie.
So I'm gonna be out of town next week just for some personal time off. So I wouldn't expect anything next week, but the week after we have like a bunch of shit and you catch up on. So that'll be his own adventure around then. Meantime, thank you guys for watching. See y'all later.
Maybe that means I can hold off on watching Antlers and Last Night in Soho until next weekend, and I can just watch more Dune.
You go do that, buddy.
I will.
You watch the shit out of that movie.
I'll watch the fucking shit out of that movie.